When we hear the word psychopath, the names of famous serial killers and mass murderers appear in our minds. Somebody who revels in the pain and misery of others, unable to empathize with the pain and suffering they're inflicting. I'm sure we can all come up with an example. However, today I would like to share the story of one psychopathic serial killer that lurks in the depths of my mind. Futoshi Matsunaga, otherwise known as Japan's mind control killer. Ever since he was a child, he had stood out from his peers. Good-looking, smart, and extremely charismatic. Born on April 28, 1961, in a relatively wealthy family, his mother and grandmother adored Futoshi. Aside from his charming personality, he was a good student as well, gathering top scores in all his classes, leading a student organization, and being class president. But there was another side to Futoshi. While he was getting good grades, he was often caught lying and misrepresenting facts. This caused his teachers to lose trust in him. Eventually, he was transferred to another school after being caught in a relationship with one of the girls attending. Futoshi graduated high school and got married to X at the age of 19 and had a son. He had inherited his father's shop and turned it into a futon business. While running it, Futoshi's name started popping up in several scams and criminal offenses. During Futoshi's marriage, there were reports of him having at least 10 mistresses. One of them was Junko Ogata, whom he had gone to school with. Junko Ogata was born on February 25, 1962, and was a classmate to Futoshi. They weren't close friends, but they had seen each other around before Futoshi had been transferred. After graduating, she got a job as a teacher in a preschool. Junko was described as caring and gentle, but that all changed after reconnecting with Futoshi in 1982. Junko's mother was firmly against the relationship, claiming that her daughter was being abused. So it was no surprise when she objected to the couple getting married in 1984. In response, Futoshi visited the mother and raped her. When he returned to Junko, he convinced her to run away with him. Futoshi explained how Junko's family hated her because of a suicide attempt in 1985, and that it would be best for their relationship if they moved away. While Junko had been a virgin during the start of their relationship, Futoshi accused her of sleeping with other men, which led to Junko having to endure severe abuse. His jealous nature appeared during these incidents. However, Junko stayed with him and eventually gave birth to 2 sons. While Futoshi ran his futon business, reports of him abusing employees by giving them electric shocks and yelling deranged and nonsensical things at them. Using this business as a front, he had managed to blackmail people out of 180 million yen. The couple managed to stay under the police's radar and went on the run as they were added to Japan's most wanted list. But this didn't stop Futoshi. In April 1993, he met his first victim, a married woman with 3 children. Futoshi had convinced the woman to leave her husband and run away with him. Junko? She was his sister. The woman believed him and agreed. In September 1993, one of the children was found to have died under mysterious circumstances. The other 2 children were sent to live with their father, and the remaining family just a month later. The woman had realized that she wasn't living the life she had been promised, and did what she could to keep her children safe. During the woman's relationship with Futoshi, she lost 11.8 million yen to him. What exactly happened during their relationship remains unknown to this day. However, her body was found on March 1994. An investigation ensued, but there was no evidence to tie Futoshi to her death or the death of her child. But Futoshi wasn't done there. He had found his next victim in Kumio Toraya and his daughter. In the 2 years that followed, Futoshi abused Kumio, blackmailing the victim with his previous convictions and going so far as to make him confess to crimes he hadn't committed. Kumio was confined into a single room together with his daughter, who was forced to abuse her father by Futoshi. When Kumio died as a result at the age of 34, Futoshi made the daughter believe that she had killed her father. Junko and the girl were instructed to clean up the remains and dump them to get rid of the evidence, while Futoshi went ahead and found his next victim. The story seemed to repeat itself. He was convinced they would get married, insisting that he was a graduate of a prestigious university in Tokyo. The woman was an acquaintance of Kumio, believed him, and moved in together with her daughter. Futoshi scammed the woman out of 5.6 million yen during their imprisonment in Kumio's apartment. In March 1997, the woman was desperate after endless torture and abuse that she saw no other way of escape than jumping through the window. She fell from 2 stories and was taken to the hospital together with her daughter. Throughout Futoshi's crimes, Junko was present and assisted wherever Futoshi wanted. We're not sure if she was truly so enamored by Futoshi or if he had truly broken her mind into unrelenting obedience. Futoshi trusted Junko enough to let her leave the apartment. She would go out and buy food and go to work, and every single time, Junko would return without fail. Until one day, in April 1997, she didn't come back to their apartment from work. Futoshi called Junko's family to find out where she was, but Junko's mother, Shizumi, refused to give any sort of answer. Futoshi blackmailed them to find Junko, trying to convince them that their daughter was a murderer and threatening them if they didn't tell him where she was. In truth, Junko had escaped. She had told her family what had happened and how she couldn't hold on any longer. So, when the news arrived that Futoshi had committed suicide and a funeral was being held, Junko believed that it was all over and returned to her family. Futoshi found her there and punished her for her actions. The Ogata family gave Futoshi 63 million yen to keep him away. He took it, but didn't stop. He invaded the house and held them hostage. That was when his psychological games went to another level. Futoshi seduced Junko's sister, Rieko, who lived in the house together with her husband. A combination of torture, sexual abuse, and his words had turned the family into his own personal cult. In late December, Futoshi instructed Junko to torture her father. She was instructed to repeatedly electrocute him until he eventually passed away. He was 61 years old. The constant abuse directed at Shizumi made the mother lose all grip on reality. She had started speaking in strange voices and acted erratically. Eventually, Futoshi instructed Rieko and her husband Kazuya to strangle Shizumi to death. She was 58. Rieko had gone deaf from the abuse she endured at Futoshi's hand, so she was the next victim he wanted to get rid of. Instructing Rieko's daughter, Aya, to hold her mother down, it was Kazuya who strangled her to death. Rieko was 33 years old at the time of her death. After the 2 murders, Kazuya was exhausted and locked up in the bathroom. He survived for 2 months by drinking toilet water, but eventually starved to death at the age of 38. After Kazuya's death in April 1998, only Futoshi, Junko, Kumio's daughter Aya, and her brother Yuki remained alive in the house. In May of that same year, Futoshi instructed Kumio's daughter and Junko to hold Yuki down, while Aya was made to strangle him. The little boy died at just 5 years old. Aya soon followed as Futoshi and Junko electrocuted her together. Although Junko herself denied this during her testimony, she claims that it was Kumio's daughter who killed the little girl, strangling her to death. Aya was 10 years old when she died. After every single murder, the victim was cut up and boiled in pots. During the investigation, neighbors would state that they heard loud noises and smelled a vile scent coming from the apartment at times. After boiling, the remains would be transported and dumped at public washrooms or in the ocean. It was Kumio's daughter, who was still being held captive, that managed to escape. After their first attempt in late January, Futoshi found the girl again in February and brought her back. For punishment? Electrocution. But that didn't stop the girl, as she escaped again in early March. This time, she immediately contacted the police department to report the crimes. The girl was 17 years old at that point and led the police to Futoshi and Junko's location, where they were arrested the next day. Junko Ogata admitted to all murders in a calm and collected manner. There was no trace left of the caring girl she had been before her relationship with Futoshi. Since there was no physical evidence, the police relied on both Junko and Kumio's daughter's statements. Futoshi insisted that he was innocent. Junko and Futoshi were sentenced to death by hanging after the trial after being pronounced guilty of the 6 murders. During this trial, however, the death of Junko's father wasn't considered murder. They had stated that the man had been tortured with electroshocks and died as a result of his injuries. An appeal was made against this decision. On April 26, 2007, the case went to trial again in high court. This time, Junko's death sentence was reduced to life in prison. Their reason? Junko was forced to commit the murders under the threat that Futoshi would assault her if she didn't comply with his wishes. As for Futoshi Matsunaga, his death sentence remained the same. Kumio's daughter was never tried for the crimes, despite partaking in them. She had still been a child, and was also one of Futoshi's victims, blackmailed into committing atrocious acts. According to various reports, we believe that the girl has moved on with her life. She underwent intense psychological treatment to work through the traumatic experiences. But she is reportedly becoming a positive and bubbly young woman, trying to enjoy the rest of her life. To this day, both Junko and Futoshi remain in prison. Their families have declined to release any comments in regards to the crimes. It is a shadow that will forever remain, and it just goes to show that true psychopaths are those whom we would never suspect upon meeting.